Welcome everyone. Here we are once again at the Awakening Health Show. And I have to admit, this has been a very intense and powerful time for so many people. And I'm personally been doing a deep dive into beginning to understand in a more spiritual context the aspects of our hormones. And I've been looking at it scientifically for a long time now, biochemistry-wise. And of course, there's always the idea of the feminine, masculine energies. But there's been some really wonderful material that's come out of England and out of the homeopaths that I study with about what I would call the sacred cycles of the whole feminine architecture of our lives, of our being, and how we are deeply affected by these cycles, and how, if we honor them, we can really benefit. It can make the biggest difference in the quality of our lives, the depth of our understanding, our spiritual development and growth. There's so much in this awareness of cycles. Now, I think all of us are aware of the cycle of light and dark. You know, how the sun comes up, the sun goes down. When the sun is up, we tend to have more energy and want to do things. When the sun goes down, we want to sleep and rest. And it's not quite so obvious when it comes to looking at the female's stages of light and dark. But we could actually simplify it as the estrogenic side being the light side and the progesterone side being the dark side, or the follicular side going along with the estrogenic side. There's something called follicle stimulating hormone that's involved with the development of estrogen. And so we have what we call the follicular phase, and it ends when a woman ovulates, and that begins the luteal phase. And the luteal phase is the phase that progresses into a depth of internalness, of introspection, of, particularly in ancient times, a time when women were cloistered together, supporting each other, resting, going into deep places, but also having deep spiritual experiences of one another, particularly right around the time of menses itself. And there's also, in this relationship of, we could say, the light of estrogen, the dark of progesterone, the light of the follicular phase, the dark of the luteal phase. We also have segments within it. And there's relationships also to the moon. So like the estrogenic and follicular stage has to do with the new moon and its movement from new to when it becomes full. So there's this half moon that happens, that's the estrogenic side. And then once the moon gets full, that's when we have the beginning of the luteal phase, which goes from the full moon to the new moon. And in that luteal phase, in that progesteronic side, we have this totally other energy that's more in the realm of the parasympathetic. It's more in the realm of the going deep internal rest and rebuild. And the estrogenic side is more what we would call the yang energy, the outward energy. But in this situation, we're talking about the outward energy of the feminine, which is to nurture and to take care of and to feed and to take care of all the little details that in our society are immense for women, taking children to There are sports events, there are dance events, there are music events, there are this and that events, where women are just so involved with all this. If they're homeschooling, they're doing a whole other realm of constant activity. So we have on this top side this realm of activity, creativity, and doing. In this top side of estrogen, new moon to full moon, and follicular stage, I'm going to keep saying these over and over again so that you can remember that they're connected. This is the time when you'll see women getting all excited about taking classes and buying books and going out and spending and getting real creative, and it's a great time to have parties and invite friends over and going out into the world. This just huge outer movement, a great time for dancing and expressing oneself, and it's also a time of building. And estrogen has a tendency to put weight on women. When we have excess estrogen, you'll see women complaining about bloating or gaining weight easily and things like that that can happen during that estrogenic side. It's just a real go-getter and building, so building the body and all of that. And what we naturally do when we go into the progesterone, the luteal, and the phase from the full moon to when we become the new moon, that's a phase that instead of building is more releasing, detoxing, cleansing, letting go of, going deep, not being superficial and on the outside, but going deep into the inner feelings and the explorations of the subtle. And when a woman is not encouraged or supported or has a container around her that supports her in going into these deep places, like the Aboriginal women have for centuries experienced, where women get together and they are all sharing the same cycle because of their connectedness with one another, their proximity. And these days, we don't have that proximity. I was just talking earlier today about how I have a longing to get together with a group of women and actually do a group physically together so that we can experience that feminine, estrogenic, kind of energy with one another and be in each other's field. Because this is an incredibly important thing for all of us, to have connectivity with the people that we care about, that we love, and that we're working with, so that there's that actual visceral experience of that connection. And in many Aboriginal cultures, women get together in a quiet, darker, softer, private space, like a cave or whatever, and there they'll have their menses together. And they'll even do their pre-menses together when the energy for many men is crazy, because women are going into these deep psychic spiritual places. And when they have the opportunity to do this, to go deep inside, to explore their psyches, to rest, and therefore balance out all the incredible externality of the energy that they've experienced in their estrogenic side, when they have the opportunity to balance that out, particularly for like the week before the period and the period itself, there's this amazing healing, beneficial energy that happens for a woman. And in that, she ends up being stronger and healthier. And many of us talk about, in this culture especially, how we have burned out adrenals. But it's the adrenals that will continue to support us when we go into menopause, if we've actually taken care of them by supporting them with resting during the time when they were designed to rest. And that's during the luteal phase. during the high progesterone part of our cycle. So it's kind of fascinating. And there's even in these two cycles, with estrogen, what we'll see is that the estrogen is just, so here's the new moon when the period starts, and here's the full moon when there's ovulation. And you're going to see a small amount of estrogen just moving along from the period. And then right about day 11 or 12, that we're going to see this big spike of estrogen. And then it starts to come down at day 14. And then it hits that low that we had and continues throughout the rest of the month. So you're going to see this low amount of estrogen going all through the month until we get to about day 11 or 12, and shoop, we have the spike, and then it takes a couple days to come back to that normal amount of estrogen, which continues throughout the rest of the time. We have an infinitesimal small amount of progesterone during the whole cycle, or during this top part of the cycle when the estrogen is in control. But then we have this very interesting thing that happens with the progesterone, which to me is almost like a visual representation of this deeper process that we're talking about that happens when we're in the progesterone side, the luteal side, the time that's more inner, where we start off with practically nothing, and then this side of the cycle is 14 days, just like the estrogenic side is 14 days. And so we just start, and slowly we build to the middle of that cycle from day 14 to 28. So it's about day 21 or 22 that we hit the highest amount of progesterone. So it's like, here's the amount of progesterone, and we're getting more and more and more and more progesterone until we get to the middle of that cycle, which is day 22. And then we're going to go slowly to the point where there's none left again at the new moon. So you'll see this kind of V. In a way, it's almost like a womb. And it's slowly moving, and it's gentle, and it's taking us slowly inward. And then once we're in, we're going to slowly move back up and out. Whereas with the estrogen, we've got energy, 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 and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, and the whole thing opens up wide, and we have this huge blast of energy. And then we come back down to that ovulation. And it's in that big boom time that we're fertile. And it's really fascinating also that there have been all these studies that have been done where like they've taken clothing from women on the days of when this huge burst of energy happens just before we hit the actual conception time. And people will find that they're attracted to the smell of the clothes of the women during this period of time when they're fertile. And they also, if they take pictures of women all during the cycle, people will find women the most attractive during that period of time, right when we're fertile. It's like nature, even though it may not be easily visible to us, will have all these subtle things: our smell, our look, our taste, our skin, our hair, the sparkle in our eyes. All of these things are subtly different but perceptible. And if people had to make a choice, you'd find that on the majority of the time they will choose and experience women being more attractive during that particular time of the month. Because it's that energy of just, that where the energy is all coming to its fullest expression during that time of the month. But that kind of also requires to come back in again. And that's one of the things that we as women can start to use by doing some simple practices to become more aware of ourselves, to attune ourselves to the gifts of nature, because not only is this true of our female cycle, but it's also true of the cycle of the year. That the summertime would be like the major expression of the estrogen, and the wintertime would be the major expression of the progesterone just before and during the period. When we go into that deeper internal space, more of the hibernation, but where the deep work happens in the quiet, in the sleep, in the deep sleep that we're not conscious of. So what we can do to become more aware of these sides of ourselves is to journal. And we can journal with a few things in mind. First of all, if you're still menstruating, you'll want to put in the day of your cycle. You'll want to put in the day of the moon, and of course the date itself. And then you want to be aware of the things that I just shared with you. How internal you feel, how external you feel. Desires for foods, because we have very different desires for foods during these different parts of our cycle. Fascinating to me, many years ago I used to have a major focus, and I've learned so much from this focus, on something called metabolic typing. And we literally had 5,000 body types that we could work with. But there were a number of women whose body type totally changed a week before their period came. The rest of the month they ate the same foods, but in that period of time, their body type completely changed. They needed different supplementation, they needed different food than they did the whole rest of the month. And honestly, I think if we're really being aware, we'll see that there is a different desire for different foods. Many of us are aware of something called seed cycling, and I know I've spoken of this before, about how different seeds, which represent an embryo, right? The seed is that which holds the potential of new life. And when it's nurtured, when it's held in the dark and moist, kind of reminds us of the womb energy, right? And fed properly, meaning it's had its time of deep nurturing, and it's also going to be offered the warmth of the sun at the right moment, then we see this new life begin. And it begins to blossom. And then we have the cycles that it will go through in its gestation, like the baby, and development and all the rest of it. But the bottom line is that there are different nutritional needs during different times. So if we start doing a journal for ourselves, and we know what day it is in our cycle, we know what day it is in the moon cycle, we know if we're in the estrogenic, progesteronic side, or what we might call the follicular or luteinizing side, and how many days in. And we notice that month after month, just 2 days before the period comes, we're craving chocolate. And we notice that that day, we get in a fight with our husbands. Or we're irritable with our children. And that day, we have trouble falling asleep. Well, we get a good idea of what's going on then, don't we? And then we have something that we can work with. And we might want to look at, now during those days, was I particularly active? Or did I actually take some time for myself? And then we can try things. If we see we have a pattern, and we notice that we haven't honored the needs of that time of the cycle. Probably our best medicine, and you know how much I love homeopathics, and I would say, let's go after homeopathics, but probably our best medicine is honoring the sacred cycle that we carry. And if we see that we're irritable and whatnot, and we've been particularly active and running around and doing all these things, and so busy we hadn't even realized how much we resented it. You know? Instead of doing that, we can look at this, support each other with our coming together and being friends, right? And say, well, you know, maybe this is the time that I need to nurture myself and take a bath and sit down with a girlfriend and talk, or listen to a really wonderful piece of music that I love, or in particular get out in nature, someplace that just nurtures my heart and soul. So we might find that we can actually heal ourselves on a level we hadn't ever even considered, just by looking at the nature of the needs that we require during the different times of our cycle. And that's the key thing that I wanted to share with you today, is how we can, if we honor these things, begin to support ourselves. We can take a look at, you know, who knows, maybe if I nurtured myself that way, I wouldn't need that chocolate. Or maybe I still would. We'll discover that. Maybe if I nurtured myself that way, I wouldn't be irritable with my husband or my kids. So there's all of these ways that through awareness we can begin to more deeply support ourselves. There are some lovely practices that have a tendency to be much more supportive of this internal flow, this internal part of our cycle. So one of the lovely things that we can do that's part of that internal part of the cycle is to work with a breath practice that's ancient from India, that most people will experience at some point if they go to a yoga class, called alternate nasal breathing. And with this practice, one uses the thumb and the baby finger in order to close off a nostril. And we start out with the left nostril, which is our parasympathetic side, and the right side is our sympathetic side, or the fight and flight side of the nervous system that we access through breathing in through the right nostril. And what we do by doing this alternate breathing practice is we actually bring balance to both the left and the right side, so that we notice that our breath is coming out of both sides simultaneously. So if you were to just take like your index finger, lick it and place it underneath your nose and breathe out under your nose, you're going to notice that one side is exhaling and the other one is not. And you can do this a few times and you'll see most likely that it'll continue to be just one side. If we successfully do the alternate breathing process, we're going to find that both sides are breathing out equally, and then you'll have a balanced breath. And it is a totally natural thing that every so many minutes we switch from left dominance to right dominance, back to left dominance, and back to right dominance. So typically we only have one side of the nostril breathing at a time. But this particular practice will relax us. So the thumb of the right hand will go for the right nostril, and the baby finger will go for the left nostril. And the first thing we're going to start out with is breathing out through the left nostril. So we breathe out, and then we'll breathe in through the left nostril, and then we'll close the left nostril with the baby finger and come to the right side and breathe out on the right. And then we'll breathe in through the right. And then we use the thumb and close off the right side of the nostril, breathing out through the left and in through the left. And we'll go back and forth until we feel like we're in a more relaxed place, and then we'll just simply end the process when we get to the out breath on the left side. And that ends the process. Doing 3 to 7 minutes of this 2 or 3 times can really help when we need to go into that more quiet, relaxed place. Another of the wonderful things that we've learned from our ancestors and people of nature, people who still are living close to nature, is how they use sound and music together as something to help balance and heal themselves, and to bring that experience of connectedness, closeness, container, and support. So churches typically have hymns they sing together. Ashrams have chants and people getting together to sing and make sounds that they know are really beneficial for healing. People just love singing. Singing is a very profound way of helping to release, to balance, and take ourselves deeper. But there are certain sounds that have notoriously gone down in history for having very extraordinary qualities. And one of them seems to be part of almost every culture, spiritual work. And the sound is A-U-M. Aum. And all of these parts, A, U, and do not require your tongue to make them. They're the first sounds that come from babies. The A, the U, and the And you'll find those sounds in Amen, Amin, and in Aum. And you'll find like Ma, that's one of the first sounds that a baby makes. These sounds have profound healing qualities for us, and if you slow down enough and really feel, you'll notice that the Ah is located just above the navel and into the abdomen. And the oo starts like right under the xiphoid process and fills up the chest cavity. Will start to resonate in the throat and go up into the nasal cavity and even begin to move up into the head. Well, there's been some really interesting research that's shown that starting out with the alternate nasal breathing for 3 to 7 minutes, and then doing at least 21 ohms. So the full sound, kind of equidistance for each of them. And you want to start with the mouth more open with the ah. See how the mouth closes with the oo, and it's completely closed with the M. And I feel a buzzing in my face when I do the So there's been a lot of studies that have shown that if someone does at least 21 of these ohms after doing the alternate nasal breathing, that they have been able to get off of many of their psych meds after 3 to 6 months doing this 2 to 3 times a day. it's really quite amazing, the healing and beneficial effects of the calming of the nervous system that happens with this. And many of you have heard me talk in the past about the vagus system. This helps to really support the vagus nerve, and the part of the vagus nerve that brings us into a state of deep peace and inner tranquility, which is the home of the luteal phase, progesterone, and the deeper part that a woman needs in order to be able to move into her later years of life with the support of her hormones, so she hasn't burned herself out just living in the estrogenic side. And that is one of the biggest issues we have in the United States, and probably, all of the highly developed countries, technologically developed, is that women have a way out of balance estrogenic side. And so there's a lot of hyperness, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of inability to sleep, insomnia, anxiety, tension, and all these things that are so hard on the adrenal glands, whose job it is to help to take over when we're no longer producing hormones from our ovaries. So starting this as young as possible is a great idea. And bringing an awareness of this to your life can only deepen the quality of your connectedness to the earth and to others, and to understanding who we are as human beings, and opening up capacities of compassion and for ourselves and others, and an honoring of what it is to carry, if you're a woman's body on top of your soul, and if you're a man, to honor your manliness that you're carrying on top of your soul, and how we, as men and women, bring another kind of balance into our lives. But when it comes to the woman's piece, the man can hold and help to create a safe container and encourage his woman and the females in his family to actually take the time for this internal movement, which our society doesn't seem to condone nearly as much as getting out there, making it happen, being, a success, and all of this part. Women can do this in a very special way, with a deep level of compassion, commitment, and nourishment that is intrinsic to who she is. A lot easier if she has the container of a supportive, healthy man and men in her community. So I hope today I've given you a few things to think about, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about what I've shared. And if you think that it would be of interest to perhaps get together, I guess we might have to do something like this on Zoom because of the distance issues these days, but I would sure love to find ways that we can get together and have groups where we actually share with each other and feel the difference of what it is to bring all that estrogenic energy and progesteronic energy together into one room and feel the difference of it rather than just at a distance. So thank you so much for listening to me today. And our next conversation is going to be about some wonderful new supplements and herbs that can really help us deal with the challenges of being alive today and what it does to our hormones because of the unnatural levels of poisons and toxins in our environment, and what we can do to help ourselves to support our bodies in cleaning those receptor sites and hormonal areas of our body so they can function better in this challenging environment we live in. So thank you for joining me, and wishing you lots of luck and fun with your new journaling process.